A boy whispered, "No one's coming to my graduation." He didn't say it like a complaint. He didn't say it like he was trying to get attention. He said it like he was reading a fact he'd already accepted, like gravity, like winter, like the way empty chairs stay empty when you've learned not to hope. And that was the moment Ethan Carter felt something tighten in his chest. Not pity, not guilt, something sharper, something that sounded like a promise forming before he even chose the words. Because Ethan knew that kind of loneliness. He knew what it felt like to stand in a room full of people and still feel like you were completely alone. He knew what it felt like to look at an important moment in your life and realize there was no one to witness it with you. No one to clap, no one to take a picture, no one to say, "I'm proud of you." And he also knew something else. Sometimes the smallest decision, one pause in a hallway, one choice to stop instead of walking away, can change the shape of a child's life. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. It was a Wednesday afternoon when Ethan heard those words. He wasn't even supposed to be at Willow Creek Middle School. He was there because his 8-year-old daughter, Sophie, had forgotten her lunchbox again. It was bright purple with a cartoon unicorn on the front and a sticky note on the side that said Sophie Carter in thick black marker. Ethan had written it after the third lunchbox went missing. Sophie claimed it wasn't her fault. "The lunchbox just wants freedom," she'd said, completely serious. Ethan had laughed then. He laughed more often now than he used to, not because life was easier, but because Sophie had this way of dragging light into every corner of their days, even the hard ones. 4 years ago, Ethan's wife Leela died in a car accident on a rainy interstate. One moment she was there, complaining about traffic, teasing Ethan for singing off-key to the radio, and the next moment she was gone. The phone call had come like a thunderbolt. The world had rearranged itself in a single sentence. Ethan had learned how quickly a life could disappear, how fast a family could become smaller. In the months after the funeral, people showed up at first. Friends, neighbors, relatives. Casseroles appeared on their porch. Cards arrived in the mail. People hugged Ethan in grocery store aisles and said, "If you need anything, call me." Then time moved forward the way it always does, and calls became less frequent. Meals stopped arriving. People returned to their own lives. Ethan didn't blame them. Grief is loud when it first happens, but then it becomes quieter, more private. You learn to carry it without announcing it. Ethan did what he had to do. He learned to pack lunches. He learned to do laundry without ruining Sophie's favorite shirts. He learned to braid hair badly and then slightly better. He learned to say, "We're okay," even when he wasn't sure. And on that Wednesday, he drove to the school with Sophie's lunchbox on the passenger seat, already rehearsing her dramatic apology in his head. The front office smelled like copier paper and lemon disinfectant. A bell chimed when he stepped inside. A tired receptionist looked up and smiled. "Can I help you?" "I'm Sophie Carter's dad." He held up the lunchbox like proof. "She left this at home." The receptionist's smile widened. "Oh, Sophie, that child has a personality." Ethan let out a soft laugh. "That's one way to put it." She took the lunchbox and wrote a sticky note. "You can drop it off at her classroom if you want. Down the hall, second door on the left." Ethan nodded and thanked her. He liked any excuse to see Sophie for a second, even if it was just to watch her grin like she hadn't just caused him an extra trip across town. He walked down the hallway past colorful bulletin boards and posters about kindness and perseverance. The walls were lined with artwork, handprints, paper flowers, badly drawn cats that looked like potatoes. It was the kind of hallway that was full of noise even when it was silent, because it carried the energy of hundreds of kids who spent their days there. Then he saw the sign taped to the gym door. "Graduation rehearsal. Please keep quiet." Ethan slowed without meaning to. The gym doors were cracked open. He could hear a teacher's voice inside, bright and practiced. "Okay, graduates, we walk in pairs. We sit when we're told. We smile even if we're nervous. This is a big day." Ethan almost kept walking. It wasn't his business. He had a lunchbox to deliver, he had a work call later, he had a life full of responsibilities that didn't leave room for random detours. But then he heard a voice in the hallway behind him. A boy's voice. Quiet. Flat. "I'm not nervous." Another kid replied, "You're lying." The first boy answered, "I'm not lying, it's just, it doesn't matter if I'm nervous." "Why?" A pause. Then the boy said it. "No one's coming to my graduation." Ethan turned. The boy stood near the wall outside the gym, not inside with the other students. He wore the same rehearsal outfit, blue polo, khaki pants, but he looked like he didn't belong in it. His shoulders were tense. His posture was careful, like he was trying to take up as little space as possible. His hair was too long in the front, like no one had taken him for a trim in months. His backpack strap was frayed. In his hands, he held a rehearsal program folded in half, rubbing the paper edge with his thumb like it was a nervous habit. Ethan felt his chest tighten. That voice, "No one's coming," carried an exhaustion that didn't belong in a kid. A teacher stepped into the hallway with a clipboard. She saw Ethan and gave him a polite nod. "Hi," she said. "Are you here for rehearsal?" "No," Ethan said quickly. Then he nodded toward the boy. I heard." The teacher's gaze softened when she looked at the boy, like she'd been carrying worry about him for a long time. "That's Liam," she said quietly. "He's in foster care." Ethan lowered his voice without meaning to. "No one's coming?" The teacher's mouth tightened. "We don't know. Sometimes a caseworker makes it, sometimes a foster parent, sometimes—" She didn't finish. Ethan looked back at Liam. Liam's eyes flicked toward Ethan and then away, like eye contact was dangerous. Ethan didn't plan what happened next. He just walked toward the boy and crouched a few feet away so he wouldn't tower over him. "Hey," Ethan said gently. "I'm Ethan. I'm Sophie's dad, 3rd grade." Liam blinked once, guarded. "Okay." Ethan nodded toward the program. "So you're graduating?" Liam shrugged. "Yeah." Ethan watched him for a second. "Middle school is hard." Liam's fingers tightened on the folded program. He didn't answer. Ethan swallowed. "I heard what you said, about no one coming." Liam's face hardened like he'd been caught doing something embarrassing. "It's fine. It's not a big deal." Ethan knew better than to argue. Kids like Liam didn't believe comfort that sounded like a speech. They believed what you did, not what you said. So Ethan asked the only question that felt honest. "What if someone did come?" Liam blinked, confused. "Why would they?" Ethan's throat tightened. "Because you deserve it." For a second, something flickered in Liam's eyes. Pain, disbelief, fear that kindness was a trap. Then the gym door opened wider and the teacher called, "Liam, we're lining up." Liam stood and walked into the gym, shoulders stiff, like he was stepping into a room where he wasn't sure he belonged. Ethan stayed crouched in the hallway long after the door closed. And in that stillness, he made a decision he hadn't known he was capable of making anymore. He was going to show up. That night, Ethan made spaghetti, the simple kind, jarred sauce, garlic bread from the freezer. The kind of dinner you make when you're tired but still want the house to feel warm. Sophie sat at the kitchen table swinging her legs, talking in rapid-fire bursts the way she always did. "Mrs. Allen said my handwriting is improving, but she also said I write like a squirrel on a skateboard, which is rude but also funny. And Dad, I need you to sign my field trip form." Ethan smiled. "One thing at a time, Soph." Sophie shoved pasta into her mouth and handed him the form. Ethan signed it, then hesitated. He hadn't planned to tell Sophie about Liam yet, but Sophie had a way of pulling the truth out of him just by existing. She narrowed her eyes. "You're doing the quiet face." Ethan blinked. "The quiet face?" "When you're thinking too hard and you forget to blink and you look like you're about to do something dumb but heroic." Ethan snorted. "That is oddly specific." "I'm 8, Sophie said, as if that explained everything. "So, what happened?" Ethan set down his fork. He told her about Liam, about the graduation rehearsal. about what Liam had said. Sophie froze mid-bite. Her face changed slowly as her brain processed something unacceptable. Then she put her fork down like a judge delivering a verdict. Absolutely not! Ethan blinked. Absolutely not what? No one is not coming. That's not allowed. Ethan felt his throat tighten. It's complicated, Soph. He's in foster care. Sometimes people... Sophie shook her head. People can be complicated. Graduation isn't complicated. Graduation is when people show up and clap so loud their hands hurt. Ethan stared at her, heart aching. What's his name? Asked Sophie. Liam, Ethan said softly. Sophie nodded like she was filing it away. Okay, Liam. When is graduation? Next Friday. Sophie's eyes lit up with mission-level determination. Then we're going. Ethan tried to keep his voice practical. We can't just... Yes, we can, Sophie cut in. We can go, we can sit, we can clap, and we can bring a sign. Ethan laughed despite himself. A sign? Sophie nodded hard. It can say, congrats, Liam, and also, you did it, and also, we're proud of you, because he needs options. Ethan rubbed his face. His adult brain started listing concerns. He didn't know Liam, he didn't know the rules, he didn't know if showing up would make it worse. But Sophie softened, and her voice lowered. Mom would have gone, she said quietly. Ethan's chest tightened around Leela's name the way it always did, but Sophie didn't flinch away from the grief. Mom would have sat in the front row and cried and embarrassed me with too many pictures, so we do that, for Liam. Ethan swallowed hard. Okay, he whispered. Sophie's smile returned instantly. Okay! But we talk to the school first, Ethan said. And we don't make it weird. Sophie nodded solemnly. I can be normal. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Sophie sighed. Normal-ish. The next day, Ethan called the school counselor, Miss Ramirez. He explained what he heard and he asked if it was allowed to attend. There was a pause on the line, long enough that Ethan's stomach tightened. Then Miss Ramirez exhaled. Mr. Carter? Thank you. The gratitude in her voice surprised him. Liam's had a hard life, she said softly. And yes, you can attend, but I would recommend meeting him beforehand. He doesn't trust easily. Good surprises can still feel like surprises to a kid who's been disappointed a lot. Ethan agreed. On Thursday afternoon, Ethan sat on a bench outside the public library. Sophie sat next to him clutching a handmade card she'd insisted on making. It was construction paper with "Congratulations, Liam" written in thick marker and a crooked drawing of stick figures holding hands. Ethan was still wondering if this was too much when he saw Liam walking up with Miss Ramirez. Liam's shoulders were tense. His hands were shoved in his hoodie pockets. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Miss Ramirez nodded to Ethan, then said to Liam, I'll be inside if you need me. Liam didn't answer, but his eyes followed her like she was his only anger. Ethan stood slowly. Hey, Liam. Liam looked at Ethan, then at Sophie, then back. Hi. Sophie stepped forward and held out the card. I made you this. Liam didn't take it immediately. His eyes narrowed. Why? Sophie frowned, confused by the question. Because you're graduating. You don't even know me, Liam muttered. Sophie shrugged. I know you're graduating, and I know you said no one's coming, and that made me mad. Liam blinked. Mad? Yeah, Sophie said, because people should show up. That's basic. Ethan watched Liam's expression, guarded, wary, afraid that kindness was a trick. Ethan spoke carefully. Liam, we're not trying to replace anyone. We just want you to know someone heard you, and we care. Liam's voice came out flat. Why would you care? Ethan swallowed. Because when my wife died, people showed up for us. And it helped us breathe again. You deserve that too. Sophie slipped her hand into Ethan's. Liam stared at their hands like the image hurt. Ethan said gently, If you're okay with it, we'd like to come to your graduation. Liam looked away. Do what you want. But Miss Ramirez watched through the library window and pressed a hand to her mouth like she'd been holding her breath for years. Ethan knew that do what you want was permission. The week leading up to graduation, Sophie treated the event like a sacred mission. She made a glitter sign that read, "Liam, we're proud of you." And Ethan tried to protest about glitter being permanent. Sophie had stared at him and said, "So is emotional damage." Ethan had no argument. On Wednesday, Miss Ramirez called Ethan again. "Liam's foster placement isn't attending," she said carefully. Ethan's anger flared. "They're not?" "No," she sighed. "He's likely being moved soon, but graduation is still happening." Ethan's voice went rough. "He's a kid." "I know," Miss Ramirez whispered. "That's why I'm calling. Liam won't say it, but he's been talking about you and Sophie. He asked if Sophie is always like that." Ethan let out a shaky laugh. "Yes, always." Miss Ramirez hesitated. "There's a reception after graduation. Families take pictures, eat cake. Liam won't have anyone to go with." Ethan didn't let her finish. "We'll stay." After the call, Sophie looked up at him and said, "Then we come harder." Ethan blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means we bring more people," Sophie said like it was obvious. "Grandpa, Grandma Joe, Aunt Rachel, Uncle Mark." Ethan's chest tightened. His family had been quieter since Leela died, not because they didn't care, but because grief changed the shape of gatherings. But Sophie wasn't offering just support for Liam. She was offering Ethan a chance to let their family show up again, fully, loudly, alive. Ethan opened the family group chat and typed, "Hey, can you come to a graduation next Friday? It's important." His mother replied immediately, "Who's graduating, Sophie?" Ethan typed, "Not Sophie, a boy named Liam. He's in foster care. He thinks no one's coming. I can't let that be true." His dad replied, "We'll be there." Rachel replied, "I'm bringing balloons, like a ridiculous amount." Mark replied, "Time and place." Ethan stared at the screen and felt tears sting, because sometimes help arrives quietly in a text message. Graduation day arrived with sunshine so bright it felt unfair. Ethan woke early. He couldn't eat. He kept checking the time like it might run away. Sophie was already dressed in a yellow dress with her hair in 2 braids Ethan had done himself, uneven but trying. "You did good," Sophie said, studying the braids in the mirror.
"Thanks," Ethan whispered, throat tight. At 4:45, they drove to Willow Creek Middle. The parking lot was filling with families carrying flowers, cameras, proud smiles. Ethan's family arrived like a parade. Grandma Joe stepped out holding a bag that suspiciously looked like cupcakes. Grandpa wore a button-down like he was going to church. Rachel emerged with balloons that fought the wind. Mark arrived last, slightly out of breath. Sophie gathered them like a commander. "Rules. We clap loud, we smile, we wave, we do not embarrass Liam." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "How do we not embarrass him while holding balloons the size of a small car?" Sophie stared. "We embarrass him gently." They entered the gym. It smelled like floor polish and old bleachers and nervous energy. Blue and silver streamers hung from the stage. A banner read, "Congratulations, class of..." Ethan scanned the room and saw Liam standing with his class near the side. Same blue polo, same tense shoulders. Liam's eyes moved across the crowd like he was searching for something he didn't believe existed. Then his gaze landed on Ethan, on Sophie, on the balloons, on Ethan's parents and siblings. Liam froze. His face did something strange, like it couldn't decide whether to break or shut down. Ethan lifted a small wave, nothing dramatic. Sophie lifted our glitter sign. Liam looked away quickly, like looking too long would make it disappear. The music started. Pomp and circumstance played through scratchy speakers. Students marched in, parents cheered. Ethan's family clapped for every student because Sophie insisted. If we clap for Liam, we clapped for all. That's how kindness works. The principal gave a speech about growth and futures. Then names were called. When the announcer said, "Liam Parker," Liam's body jolted like he hadn't expected the moment to actually arrive. He stood slowly and walked toward the stage. Ethan did something he hadn't planned. He stood up. Not dramatically, just enough so Liam could see him. Sophie stood too. Then Grandma Joe stood, then Grandpa, then Rachel and Mark. And they started clapping. Not polite clapping, real clapping, the kind that fills a room. Rachel cheered, "That's our guy!" Sophie yelled, "You did it, Liam!" Grandma Joe shouted, "We're proud of you!" The sound hit Liam like a wave. He stumbled a tiny step, recovered, reached the stage, shook the principal's hand, took his certificate. Then he turned to face the crowd. And he smiled. It wasn't huge, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. Ethan felt tears burn behind his eyes. Sophie nudged him. "Dad, after." Ethan swallowed hard and nodded. Liam walked back to his seat, holding his certificate like it might disappear. But his hands weren't clenched anymore. After the ceremony, families crowded onto the gym floor. Teachers set up tables with cake and punch. Kids posed for pictures with parents, siblings, grandparents. The air was thick with perfume, sweat, sugar, and pride. Liam hovered near the wall, holding his certificate, eyes darting like he didn't know what to do now that the moment had happened. Sophie walked straight to him. "Congratulations," she said. "You didn't fall on stage, that's good." Liam blinked. "Thanks." Sophie looked up, serious. "We're your graduation people now, okay?" Liam's throat moved. "Why?" "Because you needed people," Sophie said simply. Liam's voice turned flat. "People leave." Sophie didn't flinch. "Yeah, some do, but some stay, like my dad." Ethan froze because Sophie had just said out loud what he tried not to think about. That he stayed. That he had to. Liam's eyes flicked to Ethan, and something shifted. Rachel appeared with balloons and a cupcake. "Hi, Liam. I'm Rachel, Ethan's sister, Sophie's aunt, which means I'm legally required to be loud and embarrassing. Want a cupcake?" Liam stared like she was from another planet. Rachel softened. "No pressure." Liam took the cupcake carefully, like it was fragile. Grandma Joe approached, holding a small gift bag. "Honey, I'm Joe. Sophie calls me Grandma Joe. If it's okay, you can call me that too, just for today." Liam's breath caught. His voice cracked. He couldn't finish. Mark cleared his throat and held up a phone. "Photo time. Smile, kid." Liam stiffened, then Sophie grabbed his hand. "Come on. Photos prove things happened." Ethan's dad stood beside Liam like it was the most natural thing in the world. The flash went off. Liam stared at the photo on the phone screen, then blinked hard like he was trying not to cry. As people began to leave, Ethan found Liam near the punch table, holding the gift bag like he didn't believe it belonged to him. "You okay?" Ethan asked softly. "Yeah." Ethan hesitated. "Do you want to ride back? Ms. Ramirez said your foster placement." "They didn't come," Liam said flat. Then his jaw tightened. "They're not going to keep me anyway." Ethan's chest clenched. "Liam." Liam's voice shook. "I heard them. They said they didn't sign up for a teenager with issues." Ethan felt anger flare, but he kept his voice gentle. "That's not your fault." Liam laughed bitterly. "It's always my fault." Ethan stepped closer. "Look at me." Liam hesitated, then looked up. Ethan spoke carefully. "You are not too much. You are not a burden. You are a kid who deserved better adults." Liam's eyes went wet. He whispered, No one's ever brought people for me. Ethan's throat tightened. Well, now someone has. Liam swallowed. Why do you keep doing this? Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. Because I know what it's like to feel like the world moved on without you. And I don't want you to learn how to live like that. Liam's voice came out barely audible. Do you think I could come to your house sometime? Ethan froze. That wasn't a casual question. That was trust offered like a fragile thing. Ethan nodded. Yes, if your caseworker approves. Sophie ran over. Dad, Grandma Jo says graduation people get ice cream. Rachel called, Liam, you coming? Graduation people do ice cream. It's science. Liam looked at Ethan uncertainly. Ethan nodded. If you want. Liam whispered, Okay. 2 days later, Ethan sat in a small office with Liam's caseworker, Denise. Sophie sat beside Ethan, swinging her legs like she always did when nervous. Denise looked at Ethan. Mr. Carter, what you did was kind. Liam talked about it. Ethan nodded. I'm not trying to interfere. I just want him to have support. Denise studied him. You're a single father. Widower. Yes. And you want to be involved in a foster child's life. Yes, Ethan said softly. Not to play hero, not to collect a good deed, just to show up. Sophie leaned forward. Also, he's nice. He pretends he's not, but he is. Denise's mouth twitched. There's a mentor program, supervised visits, outings, consistent contact. You can apply. Ethan didn't hesitate. Yes. Denise warned him. Liam has trauma. He will test you. Ethan nodded. I'm not afraid of messy. Sophie added, We are a messy household, but fun messy. Denise laughed, surprising herself. Okay. 2 weeks later, Liam came to Ethan's house for dinner for the first time. He stepped into the doorway like crossing it mattered. The house smelled like cumin and warm tortillas. Sophie tried not to explode with excitement and failed halfway. Welcome, she said too loud, then covered her mouth. Sorry, Liam muttered. It's fine. They ate tacos at the kitchen table. Liam ate carefully like he didn't want to take too much. Sophie asked questions like she was interviewing him. Halfway through, Liam looked at Ethan and asked, blunt and raw, Are you doing this because you feel bad for me? Ethan set down his food. No, he said. Then why? Ethan answered simply, Because I like you. Because Sophie likes you. Because you deserve people who show up when it's not convenient. Liam looked away, throat-bobbing. Sophie said quietly, Also, you're funny and you don't even know it. Liam scoffed. I'm not funny. Sophie grinned. See, that's funny. After dinner, Sophie dragged out a board game. Liam tried to refuse. Sophie stared at him. Graduation people do board games. That's not a thing, Liam muttered. It is now, Sophie said, and Liam sat. He played. He didn't smile much, but he didn't leave the table either. For the first month, things went almost too smoothly. Liam came for dinners, he came for Saturday pancakes. He watched movies and pretended not to care when Sophie chose animated ones. Sometimes little truths slipped out, that he'd been moved 6 times in 2 years, that he didn't unpack fully, that he hated birthdays because they came with expectations. Ethan listened. Sophie listened. They didn't push. Then Denise called one evening. Mr. Carter, there's an incident, she said. Ethan's stomach dropped. What happened? Liam got into a fight at the group home. Another boy said something about his graduation. Liam reacted. Ethan's chest tightened. Is he okay? He's physically fine, Denise said, but the home is considering moving him again. Ethan's voice went rough. Because he defended himself? Denise sighed. It's not always fair. Ethan closed his eyes. Can I talk to him? He doesn't want to see anyone, Denise said. He said he knew it was too good to be true. He said people show up once, then they leave. Ethan felt something crack inside him. Denise continued carefully. There's an emergency review tomorrow. If you want to make a case, to expand the mentor program, to become a foster placement. Ethan swallowed. Could he take Liam in?
Could he do that to Sophie? Could he handle the chaos? Could he risk heartbreak again? Ethan looked at Sophie, who stood in the doorway listening, eyes wide. Sophie met his gaze and nodded once like she already knew the answer. Ethan whispered into the phone, "I'll be there." At the emergency review, adults spoke in calm voices about stability and behavior and capacity. Ethan leaned forward. "Stability isn't a building," he said. "It's people. It's consistency." They warned him Liam would test him. They told him foster care was messy. They reminded him he had a young child. Ethan didn't argue. He just said, "We're not a one-time thing." Sophie walked into the room mid-meeting holding a printed photo from graduation. Liam smiling, surrounded by Ethan's family. She held it up and said, small voice, steady. This was his face when people showed up. Silence filled the room. Sophie added quietly, "Please don't move him again." He finally started smiling. Ethan's eyes burned. The supervisor leaned back and said, "We'll begin the process."
6 weeks later, Denise pulled up to Ethan's house with Liam and 2 duffel bags. 2 bags. A whole childhood reduced to 2 bags. Sophie held a handmade sign, "Welcome, Liam. This is your house, too." Liam stared at it, jaw tight. "Don't do that," he muttered. "Do what?" Sophie asked. "Make it a big thing," Liam said. "It's not permanent." Ethan's throat tightened. "Liam?" "Don't," Liam snapped. Ethan nodded slowly. "Okay, we won't make it big." He stepped aside. "Come in." Liam walked inside like he didn't trust the warmth. And that was how it began. Not with tears, not with hugs, but with a house making space and a boy learning, inch by inch, that maybe this time was different. 3 months later, Ethan almost ruined it. Liam came home late one night. Ethan had been waiting on the porch for hours, fear building like a storm. When Liam finally appeared, Ethan's relief turned to anger so fast it scared him. "Where were you?" Ethan demanded. "Out," Liam said, hard. "You're 13. You can't disappear." "I'm not your kid," Liam snapped. The words hit Ethan like a slap. Ethan heard himself say something he regretted instantly. "Do you want to go back? Because I can call Denise." Liam froze, then nodded slowly, like his worst fear had come true. "Fine," he whispered. "Do it." He turned to leave. Ethan stepped forward, voice breaking. "Liam, wait. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that." Liam turned back, tears on his face, silent, furious. "You always mean it. Everybody always means it." Ethan shook his head, heart pounding. "No, I'm scared. I'm tired, but I don't want you gone. I messed up. I won't threaten your place here again." Liam's breath came shaky. "People say that. I know, so I'm going to prove it." The front door creaked. Sophie stood there in pajamas, hair messy, eyes wide. She walked down the steps and stopped between them. "Are you leaving?" Liam asked quietly. "I don't know." Sophie's eyes filled. "Don't," she whispered. "Please don't. You're my brother now." Brother. The word hung in the air like a fragile gift. Liam's face crumbled. He covered his face and shook. Ethan pulled him into a hug before Liam could stop him. Liam went stiff, then slowly, so slowly, leaned in. Sophie wrapped her arms around both of them. 3 people on a porch at midnight, holding on like the world was trying to pull them apart. And Ethan understood something then. Showing up once was easy. Showing up again, after mistakes, after fear, that was love. A year passed. Liam grew taller, voice deeper. He learned to laugh without immediately looking guilty. Sophie stayed bright and fierce, still believing unfairness should be fought like it was a personal enemy. Ethan learned how to be a father twice over. When freshman awards night came, Ethan's whole family showed up again, because once you become graduation people,
You don't stop. When Liam's name was called, he walked across the stage without scanning for empty seats. He looked for them, and he found them. Later, under the spring night sky, Liam held his certificate and said quietly, "I used to think graduation was stupid." Ethan smiled. "And now?" Liam swallowed. "Now it feels like proof." "Proof of what?" Liam looked at Ethan, eyes steady. "Proof that I exist, that someone notices." Ethan's eyes burned. "You've always existed." Liam nodded. "Yeah, but now it feels real." 2 years later, Ethan hung a photo in the hallway. Liam's middle school graduation photo. Liam smiling, surrounded by Ethan's family. Next to it, he hung another photo. Liam and Sophie on the couch laughing so hard they couldn't breathe over a board game. Next to that, pancakes at a diner, syrup everywhere, a messy, loud, alive family. One evening, Ethan found Liam standing in the hallway staring at the graduation photo. "You okay?" Ethan asked softly. Liam nodded slowly. "I remember when I said no one was coming." Ethan swallowed. "Yeah." Liam's voice cracked. "I believed it." Ethan stepped closer. "I know." Liam blinked hard. "Thank you for proving me wrong." Ethan whispered, "Thank you for letting us." Liam muttered, "Don't make it weird." Ethan laughed quietly. "Wouldn't dream of it." Sophie appeared behind them like she always did, somehow hearing everything. "I heard," she announced, "and it's okay to make it weird. This family is weird." Liam rolled his eyes. "You're weird." Sophie grinned. "Yes, and I'm proud." And just like that, the hallway felt like home. Sometimes the cruelest part of being an orphan isn't the missing parents. It's the empty seats, the moments other kids take for granted, someone clapping, someone cheering, someone saying, "I'm here." But what Liam learned, and what Ethan learned too, was that family isn't only blood. Family is who shows up. Family is who comes back even after mistakes. Family is who claps until their hands hurt. Family is who brings balloons and glitter signs and too much love because some people have had too little for too long. And sometimes, no one's coming isn't a fact. It's just a belief waiting for someone brave enough to prove it wrong. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. Like this video, subscribe for more stories every week, and remember, showing up might feel small to you, but to someone else, it can change everything.